Hi everyone, I'm Steve Wiss. I'm joined by Kevin Harper, and this is Sunday's All Sports Betting Pod Football Edition. And we're going to start in the Premier League, where there's two fixtures: Brighton against Southampton and Leicester against Everton. Now, this South Coast derby, I suppose you might as well call it, Kev. Brighton versus Southampton looks set to be a tight fixture, according to you.
Yeah, I think so, Steve. Yeah, hopefully it'll be tighter than the distance between the two sides. That's for sure, because never been a derby this. Yeah, I just the style of the two teams. You know, neither of them are particularly attack-minded. They both form a structure of solid defence, keep things tight, don't really give an awful lot away. Obviously, Southampton have probably had 18 months of struggling to score goals. I've yet to meet a Chris Hughton side that naturally scores goals, and I don't expect anything to change here, really. Obviously, you know, Brighton scored 3 last time out, but I don't think we can read too much into that. If there's a worse Premier League performance this season than the one West Ham put up in that game, I hope I don't get to see it. Southampton, you know, yeah, okay, they won their last game, but it needed a world-class goal against, well, a pretty negative side. And that's kind of the game that I'm expecting here, actually. Two, maybe not negative sides, limited sides, I think I'll call them, kind of cancelling each other out. For Brighton, obviously, Pascal Gross is the main man, isn't he? I think he's been involved in 6 of Brighton's 9 goals this season. So eventually, coaches are going to cotton onto that, and he'll start to get marked out of the game. And given that Southampton have one of the better, well, what do you call them, holding midfielders, defensive midfielders, whatever you want to call the position, one of the better ones in the league in Oriol Romeo, you would imagine his task is quite simple. You follow Gross all the way around the pitch. And I would imagine on the other sort of side of the ball game, Chris Hughton will nullify any attacking threats that Southampton have, if indeed he can identify any of them. So really and truly, barring like, you know, a freak circumstance like a sending off or, you know, dodgy refereeing decision, penalty, these kind of things, I'm not expecting a particularly high scoring game here. I mean, if you pushed me, I'd probably say Brighton to edge it, but I wouldn't be particularly confident with that. At least they're kind of 3 unbeaten at home, aren't they, Brighton? And to be fair, they could have won all 3 had it not been for a Wayne Rooney penalty late on in the last game that they played there. But Southampton are good enough defensively. I don't see either of these sides scoring twice. So under 2.25 looks to be the way to go. I mean, 0-0's very much a runner, really, isn't it?
Yeah, you know exactly what you're going to get from Chris Hughton's side, don't you? And you would expect that, and it's understandable, you know, a new team in the Premier League and all that. As far as Southampton go, I mean, they sacked Claude Puel after a disappointing season last year, offensively. But not a lot seems to have changed. 8 goals in 9 games, 3 of which were against West Ham, who at that point was shipping left, right and centre. I mean, the goal last week, Sofiane Boufal, I must admit it, brought back a few memories, actually. I still remember the first ever match he ever played in. It was in French League 2 for Angers, and he scored 2 on his debut. But the reaction afterwards was kind of summed up the bloke as well, basically going to his manager and saying, why the hell didn't you start me? He's a real cocky twat. I don't like him, Boufal. But in a way, he had a bit of a point that, you know, this new manager at Southampton seems to be, he's not exactly loading the team up with offensive weapons, is he?
Don't really have too many to load up with, do they? I mean, you look at their strikers, Charlie Austin, he's more flimsier than a sheet of glass. Gabbiadini's okay. I never understand why he's not utilised better. And then Shane Longwell, Cow's Ass and Banjo spring to mind with him. He runs an awful lot, but his accuracy to goals is nowhere near as good as his work rate. So I just don't think they have the attacking weapons, really. Not sufficient to regularly score anyway, and Brighton certainly don't.
Yeah, I think under 2.25 here, that's the bet you're going to go with. And we move on to the second fixture. I briefly talked about Claude Puel there, and he was named the surprise new Leicester manager. I think this time last week, some people were suggesting it would be a battle of caretaker managers with this fixture, but Puel will make his debut for Leicester. What do you make of his appointment here, Kev, for the Foxes?
I think it's a pretty poor appointment, I have to admit. I don't necessarily buy into this. He's a perfect fit for Leicester. Yeah, his playing style might be, but I don't think he is. I'm guessing what they mean by that is his playing style is similar to Claudio Ranieri's, i.e., build on a solid enough defensive foundation and counter attack with pace and purpose. But the thing about Ranieri is he's a character, isn't he? Fans can rally behind him. They can get behind him. Even if things were going wrong, he was a good guy. He was someone that the fans can relate to. You can't relate to Claude Puel, or certainly English fans won't relate to Claude Puel. I've seen more personality in a bedroom wardrobe than there is in him. He's dour, and because of that, he's probably perceived negatively, and that's never a good starting point. Obviously, he'll be on a decent wedge to manage them, and I just think Leicester at the current time would have been better off going with a British manager. An awful lot of the spine of their side are either British or they've been in the British game for an awful long time. You saw how they reacted both to Shakespeare when he took over being British, and also to Appleton last week. I'd have stuck British. Pretty well known that I'd have gone with Dyche or Chris Wilder if I had the opportunity. But they've made their bed; they might have to lie in it.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this off air during the week. Claude Puel, I actually think he's misconceived as a negative manager. Whenever I saw him in French football, he was definitely one of the most positive coaches. I mean, times can change, though. I mean, he did win his league title a long time ago. I think it was in the late 90s. He did reach the semi-final of the Champions League with Lyon, but then he got sacked by them. So, he doesn't have a bad career CV, but there are blotches on that CV as well. Does he catch Everton at a good time or not, though, now? I mean, we know they're a mess under Ronald Koeman, but I mean, what is the managerial situation at Everton right now, Kev?
Well, obviously David Unsworth's taken over on a temporary basis. He'll know the club when he's. I think he's had a couple of caretaker stints. Certainly, he took over when Roberto Martinez left. And obviously, he's been the under-23 coach, which actually might not be a bad thing for him because an awful lot of that under-23 squad have developed into their first team, haven't they? Calvert-Lewin, Davies, the kid at right back, is it Kenny, is it? Holgate, Lookman, he'll have managed all of these at some stage. So that might not necessarily be a bad thing. And just going back to what I said about fans relating to managers, well, there isn't an Everton fan alive that related to Ronald Koeman. So they'll be pretty glad that he's bit the dust, and they'll certainly get behind David Unsworth. The one thing that you're probably going to be able to guarantee that Everton do here is give this a right good go. Whether that's enough or not, I'm not sure. Whoever takes over that job is basically on a 2-month freebie, aren't they, until January, because they can't do anything until they can sign a striker, and that's obviously their issue. They never replaced Lukaku. I don't necessarily think that the money that they spent was an issue, or the players that they brought. At the end of the day, you need someone to stick the ball in the net, don't you? And Everton lost someone who does it 30 times a season, and they just didn't replace him. So until that happens, Everton aren't really going to go anywhere. Yeah, of course, they should improve on the position that they're in. That's clearly a false position that they're in the league, no doubt about that. But, they're not going to suddenly fly and whiz up to push for the top 6 like they were expected to do until they get a striker. I'd expect them to be better in this game, Steve. Whether that's enough to beat Leicester, I mean, it might be. I don't think we're going to see too much from Leicester that we've not seen in the past, purely and simply because every single manager seems to have the same sort of scrapbook to go by. Keep it tight and counter attack through Mahrez and Vardy. That kind of plan's pretty well known, whoever you are playing against them now. So I'd imagine Everton will defend deep and use the likes of Sigurdsson, Rooney, maybe even Klassen to try and get something at the other end. I can see this being a tight game as well, actually. Wouldn't want to commit to it, but that's how I fancy it might play out.
Yeah, Leicester minus 0.25 favourites. The goal line set pretty much between 2.25 and 2.5. If you had to lean on either of them, unders, I guess, would be one of them.
Yeah, probably. That said, they've both been fairly leaky this season, haven't they? But yeah, if I had to lean somewhere, I'd probably go somewhere with the draw. So I'd look at a line that kind of gets me some profit through the draw.
Well, thanks very much for your thoughts on the two Premier League games, Kev. One selection, Brighton against Southampton, under 2.25 goals, and we'll be back tomorrow to hear your thoughts on the Monday night football.
Yeah, indeed. Looking forward to the Monday night football, Steve. Features one of my sides of the past in Burnley. But before then, let's head to France. Decent day for you in Ligue 1 on Saturday, with a couple of winners and 3 matches for you to have a look at on Sunday. Your bet actually comes in the last of those 3 games, so we'll go straight to that one. Obviously, Marseille minutes away, or seconds away rather, from beating PSG last weekend. They go to Lille. Can they build on that? Well, what has to be described as a positive result?
Yeah, because if they'd been offered a 2-2 draw before the start of the match, they would have bitten everyone's hand off, wouldn't they? No one expected them to avoid defeat. No one expected them to play so well against PSG. It was a cracking performance. They deserved to win. It was a real shame they couldn't win. I think hopefully they won't take too many negatives from that during the week, and they'll think back as a positive. Marseille have definitely improved an awful lot in the last month or two. At the start of the season, they lost 6-1 against Monaco, and I thought, here we go again, same old Marseille. They struggle in the big games. They've come back really well, beat Nice. That result against PSG. The offense is really firing on all cylinders, and again, everyone's available here apart from Dimitri Payet, which is a big loss for them. But they've got enough playmakers who should be able to expose a Lille team which is desperately disappointed. And all the big talk about this match is the return of Bielsa against his former club. And, things have not gone well for him at Lille. He's probably he's under a lot of pressure. They're in the relegation zone. They're losing a lot of matches. They don't look right. I've called them overrated on this podcast before, and I stick by that. I still think they're overrated. For Marseille to be such a big price at 2.25 just shows that, but I wouldn't trust them away from home in this fixture. Look, Bielsa's going to be really up for this, isn't he? He doesn't want to lose against his former team. I think this will be... A couple of Sundays ago, there was a brilliant 3-3 draw involving Marseille at Strasbourg, and I could see something similar. End-to-end football, both teams go for it. And, Bielsa's a naturally attacking manager. I've seen a few quotes in the media ahead of this game. Marseille sources saying he's basically like a mad professor. And, that's what he is. You don't know what you're going to get from him, but he won't defend very often. I mean, you could call me a bit of a mad professor for actually tipping the bet I'm going to tip, which is over 2.75 goals, which really, in French football terms, is a bit suicidal, Kev. You should never bet on a goal line this high unless someone like a PSG are involved or a Lyon. Marseille aren't really quite in that category. So this is a risky bet because this is a league where goals do not always flow. But I think there'll be at least 3 goals in the match, Kev. So over 2.75 for me. Entertaining contest.
Yeah, let's hope there are plenty of goals in that game. Let's just touch on the other 2 matches. One side who have gone goal crazy of late, Lyon, 14 in their last 4. They take on a Metz side that are looking more and more out of their depth with every passing week. Home banker?
Yeah, I was really tempted to take Lyon -2 here on a handicap, but Metz obviously lost 9 out of 10 games, but they're not quite as bad as that. They've been unlucky in a lot of games. They've now sacked their manager, Philippe Ongesberger, which was a bit of a hard decision to make because I think he made nearly 500 club appearances for Metz during his career. A popular guy there, but so they've got a caretaker manager in charge, Jose Pino, I think his name is, and well, lo and behold, they go and win a match in midweek in the Cup, although it was against Red Star, who are now a 3rd division team, so I wouldn't read too much into that. They have appointed a new manager, Frederick Hans, but he doesn't take over until Monday. Whether or not that's going to give the players a boost, I don't know. It's going to be really difficult for them to contain Lyon, but look, sometimes when a managerial change happens, the players just change everything, don't they? So you might get the best performance of the season out of Metz. And I don't think they'll avoid defeat, but maybe they could just lose by 1 goal or 2 goals. If you're taking a -2 Asian handicap, you've got to, the team's got to win by 3 or more to get you a full win for you. So I'm going to leave it alone. It's a bit stupid to take such big handicaps, but Lyon should win the game easily, really.
Yep, one for any accumulators that are being put together out there. Quick word on the other game, two mid-table inconsistent sides to lose against Saint Etienne.
Well, I wouldn't recommend watching this one particularly, Kev. I don't think it'll be a high-scoring game. Don't think it'll be very entertaining either. I was tempted by Toulouse minus a quarter here. I've got a feeling they'll win it 1-0 exactly. Sort of game where maybe just one chance they might take it. I don't think Saint Etienne are very good at the moment. Toulouse are in a knack of getting results, so I'd go for a 1-0 win, maybe an under. But yeah, just not. I was tempted by it, but just not the sort of match you want to get involved in any sort of form, really.
No, indeed. We won't dwell too much on that one. Then we'll head to Norway. But before we do, a quick reminder that your one bet in Ligue 1 on Sunday in the night game is over 2.75 goals between Lille and Marseille. Okay, we've got half a dozen games in Norway's top flight to enjoy on Sunday. Many of them kick off at 5 p.m. UK time. I say UK time because obviously the clocks go back. We're looking at a couple of home sides as well, aren't we, Steve? Tromsø being the first of them.
Yeah, this is a really massive game for Tromsø. They're in the third place relegation playoff position right now, but they're in good form, and they have been ever since they appointed a new manager 2 or 3 months ago. They've got to beat Viking, really. This is like a free pass for them. You know, this is a side against a side that lost 7-1 at home last week, for goodness sake. And I know teams like that, there's professional pride at stake, isn't there? But look, Tromsø desperately need the points. Viking down and out effectively. The logical solution is a home win fairly easily. And even forgetting motivation, things like that. Look, who wants to go up north this time of year to Tromsø? It's a really horrible place to go in the winter. You know, for a team that's probably going to be relegated. What a place to get relegated it would be. I think basically if they lose the game or fail to win, it will be official. So, yeah, it's a really tricky place to go. Tromsø should get the business done. There's not an awful lot else to say. They're a -1 Asian handicap, which I think is a bit generous. I thought they'd be -1.5 here, considering the stage of the season we're at. They've got to win the game. Sometimes it doesn't always work out as simple as that, but they're the better team right now. Viking are horrible, and just should be a straightforward home win. Yep.
And talking of teams who are the better team, Strømsgodset have been the better team in their last 5 matches. They've won the lot. They've only lost 1 of their last 11. It's fair to say they're flying right now, and you expect that to continue when they host Sogndal on Sunday.
Yeah, Sogndal will fight as hard as they can here. They're not going to give over easily, but I've earmarked Sogndal as being the team that finishes third bottom for quite a while now, and I think that's going to happen. They're a limited team. Just don't have enough options. They've had too many injuries this year. Strømsgodset, yeah, simply the better outfit, especially led by a couple of playmakers, Basil Uradi and Eirik Andersen, who really should have enough technical qualities to put Sogndal away. Strømsgodset are always very good at home anyway, even when they were in bad form earlier in the season. No team was beating them there. You can get a -75 handicap, and they should still be motivated quite strongly because they're in the hunt for a medal. Certainly third place is in their grasp. Even second isn't out of the question. So they're going to keep fighting very hard in front of their own fans. And this is just a simple case of, you know, a good team taking on a poor team. And yeah, 75 -0.75 handicap on Strømsgodset. Again, just a simple pick, really, Kev.
Yeah, it does look like a really good bet, that one. Just a quick line on the leaders. Rosenborg, they host Stabæk. Pretty short, should win.
And if they win the title. So the motivation couldn't be any higher for them. -1.5 Asian handicap. I thought about it, I must say, and maybe during the day I might decide to back it, but they only need to win. So 1 goal win is quite acceptable for them. And Stabæk are the sort of team, they're going to go there. They're in a safe mid-table position, and they're actually going to go there and attack. That's what the sort of manager they've got. They will not go there and defend. He famously, I did an interview with their manager, Tony Ordnance, just recently on another podcast I do, and he said he tries to win every single match, no matter who it's against. He has no fear. So they'll take the attack to Rosenborg, which might be a bit of a might be their downfall, but they'll certainly give it a good go, score a few goals. So might be an over, Kev, but I think the line's about 3.5, so forget that. It could be something like a 4-2 even, It'd be a bit of a mental game, but I'll leave it alone.
Yeah, indeed. It does look like the title parade for Rosenborg, that's for sure. There is a Monday night game, which I'm sure we'll cover in our next podcast. Anything else you want to flag up in the remaining Norway games before we move on?
Well, you know what? You could do worse than having an accumulator of 6 home wins. I think it's going to be a good day for the home teams in Norway, all round really. And I'm sure, I don't know what it pays or anything, but I'm certainly looking at all 6 home teams. I don't think any of them will get beaten on Sunday. So we was tempted by Sarpsborg. I was tempted by Vålerenga, but I've just stuck with the 2 that I'm more confident with, Kev, I think, which is sometimes the best solution, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed, yeah. Could be worth a couple of combos on those home sides, like you say, for those that want a riskier punt to see themselves through the evening. Okay, let's head across stateside. The MLS playoffs are well and truly underway now. The knockout round has been and gone, and we're into the conference semi-finals. Very well spread out, these first legs, and the first game comes on Sunday night, and it sees the Vancouver Whitecaps hosting the Seattle Sounders. Those that are familiar with the MLS will know this is a Cascadia Cup clash, so there's a bit of rivalry on this to add a little bit of sort of extra spice to the game. The 2 sides have already met 3 times this season. Vancouver have a win, Seattle have a win, and there's been a draw. Who's going to win this one, Steve?
Well, what a midweek round it was. I don't think a lot of people saw the results coming, what happened, It was some strange stuff. You could say really in all 4 of the fixtures. I certainly did not see Vancouver winning 5-0 against a rejuvenated San Jose. In fact, in my preview last week I did for Vancouver against Portland, I said that Vancouver they're just not up with the top teams. They're not as good as the likes of your Seattles, your Portlands, Atlanta, Toronto, etc. And but I actually think losing last week has now done them a favour, because they've now won a playoff match 5-0. The place was absolutely buzzing, wasn't it? There was a pretty packed crowd in there, and everyone is going to be really looking forward to this fixture now. So in a bizarre sort of way, actually losing that last week and not getting the midweek bye, as I say, I think it's done them a big favour. They're going to have a lot of momentum going into this game, and I see them beating Seattle in the first leg. I don't know overall if they can get past Seattle, because it's going to be very tricky for them at CenturyLink Field, isn't it? But for this fixture, they've got quite a few things in their favour, injury news and everything. No Clint Dempsey, no Morris, a couple of others are out for Seattle. I'm leaning strongly towards Vancouver, Kev. How do you see it going?
Yeah, well, I think you just hit the nail on the head there with the injuries to Seattle. Well, not so much the injuries, because obviously Dempsey's suspended, isn't he? Quite why you'd get yourself sent off in a nothing game in the last regular game of the season. I'm not sure. He might have been a little bit unlucky, but even so. Vancouver, do you know what? That was a really good performance against San Jose on Wednesday night. Annoyingly for me, because I did actually back San Jose on a handicap. And to be fair, they were well beaten. It's one of the best performances I've seen for Vancouver, actually. Like you, I was a little bit concerned that they lost too tamely at Portland last weekend. But as luck would have it, it's all worked out well for them. I'm not a fan of sides that have buys. The caveat to that, of course, is that this game has kind of come quicker than what they normally do. It's only 7 days since they last played, so they shouldn't be too rusty. Seattle. How does Seattle play the game? Do they try and hang in there, take it back to the link? Even if they're a goal down, they'd fancy the chances, wouldn't they? They're really good at home. But they're not that good away from home, are they? They haven't scored in their last 3 away games. And as you say, Dempsey and Morris being out, that's not going to help. Might free up Ladero a little bit, but I can see Vancouver riding the crest of a wave here, and maybe not putting the tie out of sight, but certainly giving themselves a real advantage going to Seattle.
It was a really big statement win, wasn't it, for Carl Robinson? I really never saw that coming in that fashion. I mean, if they won the match, I thought it was going to be a close affair. I'm not a big fan of Carl Robinson, to be honest, as a coach, as a manager. I think he's made some questionable decisions over the last 2 or 3 years. I hate his rotation. all season, he never keeps the same 11. And I'm like, what's the point? Because the players just don't seem to be getting any rhythm. But as I say, he really got his players up for that game. And I can't imagine he'll make too many changes ahead of this weekend. And I've seen it many times before, a team winning in the wild card round, especially at home, it just changes the whole complexion of things. And it can be the real foundation of a deep playoff run. Just winning that playoff, the pressure's off them. They've won a playoff match. That's a great feeling in the city. Think of the NFL. Even if you go out of the playoffs and you've won a match, at least you won one. You know, you feel good about it. Yes, Seattle are the defending champions, but I'm not sure that's necessarily a good thing. It'll probably put a bigger target on their back. I think Vancouver are a big price here, Kev. Minus 0.25 handicap, around 2.14. If it's 1-0 with 10 minutes to go, Seattle will not mind losing 1-0. You know, if they or losing by 1 goal, they'll take it, especially if it's 2-1. So yeah, it's one of those situations where I think you've got to look at the two legs overall, and in this tie, Vancouver definitely have the edge, in my opinion. They're a big price, so they're worth backing. I think 1-0 or 2-0.
Yeah, I agree. I think Vancouver are worth backing, particularly with the draw cover. I would think, you know, it's got to be in their mindset, particularly given Seattle's home form. It's got to be in part of their mindset that they need to go there a goal ahead, if not 2. So, yeah, I could see Vancouver, as I say, riding the crest of that wave from Wednesday night. And if they're not buzzing now, well, they're never going to be, are they? Let's be fair. Yeah, that's the way I see it as well, Steve. So minus 0.25 is the way forward in that game. We'll preview the rest of the MLS playoff matches in our next podcast. They come along a bit later in the week. So that's all for now. Thanks for your thoughts on France, Norway, and the MLS game, Steve. Best of luck with all 4 of those picks. And we will return Sunday night ahead of Monday's matches.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever done a Pacific Monday podcast before, but there are a few matches in respective leagues which are certainly worth talking about, so we can really give them the in-depth touch, can't we, Kev? So looking forward to that one. Best of luck on Sunday yourself, and we look forward to having everyone join us for Monday. So take care, everyone. Goodbye.